Really common maintenance job that we're doing today. Today we are filling cracks and gaps around window sills. Hiya folks, welcome back. Today I thought I would continue on the theme of caulk that we were talking about last time. Caulk, if you don't know, is like a flexible decorator's filler. And really common job that we've got today, and that is to fill loads of gaps around windowsills. These are quite low down windowsills here, but it's a gap between the sill and the woodwork, the skirting board or baseboard if you're in the States. Really common problem this that you're going to have to fix in new build properties especially. If it is a new build, I would suggest that you leave it for a good 2 years for everything to dry out before you even attempt to fill all the cracks. Otherwise you will be going back and filling the cracks again later on. It's not the sort of thing you should be reporting to the builder or to the building company. It's absolutely normal, and it basically stems from the fact that as materials dry out in a very dry, centrally heated house, they shrink. Obviously, if it's cracks that look more structural, anything kind of 5mm and above, then you should probably be getting some professional help with that. But for most cracks like this, it's an easy DIY job to fix. But there is a good way of going about doing this, and there's a bad way of going about doing this. And really, actually, I've probably got 3 different scenarios here that I'm going to show you between the gaps that I've got around this side, in the middle here, and on that side as well. It will be quite a messy job, and because we're on carpet, I'm definitely going to put a dust sheet down. Let's crack on. So as I say, we've really got 3 different situations here. We've got on this side, this windowsill board has dried out and contracted, and it's really contracted in that direction. Because you can see, I mean, it's pulled away from the paintwork by a good 2 or 3mm. All of this old caulk needs to come out. There's a lot of people would just bang in some light caulk over the top of this, but it's going to be a really messy job because you've got all these ridges of paint that's just kind of flaking off, and it wouldn't be a proper job. So all this old caulk really has to come out of this one. Over on this side, this is the side that hasn't really moved, but we do still have a bit of cracking just from basically a tiny bit of contraction of the sill and from the baseboard as well. But it's a tiny crack, and it's a crack that it doesn't require all of the old caulk to be ripped out. I can just put some new caulk over the top of that and fix that problem. You can really tell by, if you just run your finger down the gap, you can feel whether or not you're going to get away with just putting new caulk over the top of it. And on this side, it'll be fine. On this side though, we've got a little bit of a step in the caulk where the sill has actually contracted downwards slightly, and plus the baseboard's contracted upwards. And as a result, we've got the paint is kind of broken along that edge, and we've probably now got a gap of about 1mm between the bottom of the old caulk and the windowsill. So along here, the old caulk's going to have to come out. And then along this edge here, similar to the last one I just showed you, but much more major cracking. This one is mainly because the skirting here has contracted height-wise. This has contracted down a little bit as well. It's contracted too much for it to just be the MDF. I would say there's probably some sort of wooden framework underneath this, and that wooden framework has contracted a little bit as well. So again, on this side, all of this old caulk needs to come out. I can't just caulk over the top of that. It would be very noticeable. So all I would say is, with this type of job, before you just plough on and fill every single gap with caulk, just spend 5 minutes working out what is the thing that shrunk, what's caused the crack to appear, and is it likely to happen again in the future? You know, is there some sort of underlying problem that needs to be fixed before you even bother with this? But this is just bog standard new build cracks. This is actually a 6-year-old new build, so it's about time that this gets sorted. I'm going to strip out all the old caulk. I'm also going to sand down the windowsill because this is going to get a fresh coat of paint as well, and I'm going to do the sanding before I do the caulking. So that's everything all cleaned up now, all the dust hoovered out, wiped down with a damp cloth, and I've, give it all a bit of a feel to see that there's no big ridges of paint or anything like that. You want it to feel as smooth as possible from square one. If there's any opportunity to sand down, little divots and lumps in the old paintwork, now is your time. You don't want to be doing any sanding once you've got wet caulk in this gap. And before you plough on and just fill this gap with caulk, the first thing I would suggest, just have a look at the gaps that you're dealing with. Here we've got a really small, probably less than 1 millimetre gap under here, so normal caulk will be absolutely fine. But over on the other side here, we've got a gap of probably closer to 3 millimetres, especially towards this end here. And the thing is, with normal caulk, it shrinks as it dries. And with a big gap like that, it makes it much harder to judge how much caulk to apply so that when it shrinks, it doesn't kind of shrink into the gap, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to backfill with a lighter caulk. I'm just going to use the Nemesis that you probably saw on the caulk tests that I've already done. It's a much lighter weight caulk and it doesn't shrink. The only trouble is I've found it is more susceptible to cracking. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to backfill with this and then put normal, more flexible caulk over the top. I'm just switching over to a normal caulk for the top coat. I'm just using Screwfix No Nonsense. That actually came out as one of the best in terms of not cracking after you've applied the paint straight after applying the caulk. I'm really forcing the caulk down into the joint to leave only a very slightly radiused joint, and then once the caulk shrinks and dries, that radius will literally just suck in and disappear. And as I briefly mentioned before, I'm just applying the No Nonsense over the top of the Nemesis, which I used as a backfill earlier on. As I say, the No Nonsense does shrink a lot. You can use it for big gaps, but you're just going to have to contend with the fact that it'll probably shrink back into the gap that you're filling. So you might think we've got too much of a radius here, but I can promise you, once this shrinks back, once the caulk dries, it'll be a really nice joint that we've got along here. And really, it's all down to the individual caulk that you use. You use a caulk that you're comfortable with, because they all shrink at slightly different rates and different ones apply in different ways. You've seen the caulk tests that I've already done. Have a look at that. Don't panic about which brand you use or anything like that. Most of them come out the same factory anyway. So I'm going to leave that for about half an hour just for the caulk. Where are you? Hello. And just for the caulk to skin over a little bit. While that's drying, I'm just going to have a bit of a tidy up here. I'm going to mask off the carpet, ready to do the priming, and then we can crack on with the next bit. So I gave the whole lot a coat of water-based acrylic primer undercoat. You don't have to prime before painting, but generally you are going to get a better finish if you do prime or at least undercoat before doing your top coat. Again, I'm using a water-based gloss for the top coat. I'm just using Johnstone's Trade Aqua System Advanced Technology water-based gloss. You use whatever paints you're comfortable with at the end of the day. I'm using a smaller brush just to get into the tighter areas, and then a large brush for cutting in around the edges. So there you go folks, all done and dusted. There shouldn't be any more cracking in this over time. I mean, as I say, it's 6 years old now. It's done all of the expansion and contraction that it's going to do over time. If you do get any crazing or cracking in the caulk, then a quick coat of paint over the top of that normally sorts that out. Or you can even do a very, very thin layer of caulk over the top of it. But with this kind of combo, I've never had that problem. A lot of it can be down to contraction of the substrates, and at the end of the day, caulk can handle a certain amount of movement, but nowhere near as much as stuff like silicone. But you don't want to be using silicone for decorative repairs like this, because you can't paint over the top of it. Couple of other quick tips. Don't use frog tape on the carpet. I ran out of normal masking tape. And frog tape just doesn't stick to carpets, so but it was all I had. Make sure you've got enough masking tape. Also, I do like the Johnstone's water-based gloss, and it doesn't seem to yellow anywhere near as much as oil-based paints, but I have noticed on this tin, and let's check the date on this tin. I don't know if I can find a date on it. I can't find a date anywhere. But to me, this looks like it's yellowed slightly on the edge of the tin. Let me know where you are with water-based glosses. I did do a test on this channel a long time ago, and I'm due to do another test on water-based glosses. At the end of the day, if the white water-based gloss still turns yellow, kind of defeats the object of going down the water-based route. As I say, it's nowhere near as bad as oil-based and how quickly that turns yellow. But there's a noticeable yellowing around the edge of the tin here. So do let me know in the comments below, what is your favourite water-based gloss at the minute? Because we will have a test Tuesday coming up on them. I did get asked in the comments of the caulk test video, do you have to paint over caulk? Really, caulk is designed to be painted over. You shouldn't really leave it unpainted. It's not the end of the world, it's just, it's got a slightly rough texture to it, and over time it will pick up dirt and grime. The caulk itself might yellow over time, so it is really designed to be painted over. There's plenty places in this new build where they haven't bothered to paint over the caulk, and it does look scruffy after a few years. So in a nutshell, no, you don't have to paint over caulk, but you really should. Before I finish off, quick bit of channel news. I'm moving a lot of my non-maker type videos off this channel and onto my second channel, well, onto my Andy Mac Drums channel, which is now just called Andy Mac. Link in the description below. Much more audio related stuff, and of course quite a bit of drumming related stuff on that channel as well. But generally anything totally random and bloggy, vloggy type random videos are now going to be going onto that channel instead of onto this channel. So if you see videos disappearing from this channel, they've probably been moved onto my Andy Mac Drums channel, because I even hoard YouTube videos. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. I shall see you next time. Bye.